So our January theme,
Getting grounded, back to basics, revisiting our understanding of science of mind. And so the first week we looked at the thing itself, what this infinite is, to try to wrap our heads around that. And then last Sunday we looked at the power of our thought and beginning to really get clear that thoughts are things, that there's no such thing as an inactive, non-powerful thought. And so this morning we're going to look at the principles of successful living. Well, how do we begin to put all this together? Here's what Ernest Holmes says in Science of Mind on page 266, the first paragraph. Science of mind is not a get-rich-quick scheme, neither does it promise something for nothing. It does, however, promise that the one who will comply with its teachings, that they shall be able to bring greater possibilities and happier conditions into their experiences. Pretty bold. And yet that's really pared down from the 1926 version, which we'll get to later. So in order to understand the principles of living, I think we first need to understand what a principle is. And I'm not talking about the guy that runs the school or the woman that runs the school. Okay? I'm talking about principle and invisible. And I think this is where we struggle. Principle, by definition, is invisible. Okay? Here's what the dictionary says about principle. A fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior or a chain of reasoning. That's all pretty invisible. A scientific law that has numerous special applications across a wide field. So now we bring science into it. A fundamental source or basis of something. So we have principle being a foundational truth. We have principle being scientific law. We have it being the basis of something. It also says that it is a natural law forming the basis of evolution of life. So if we understand principle as the ground of being, if we understand the greatest principle there is as creation, creator, the activity of creation, that thing we talked about in the first week, the thing itself. If we live from that principle, I don't think you can have an unsuccessful life. You would have to really work at being unsuccessful. Now, how do we measure success? See, because a certain objective measure of success is, did I create accurately? Well, the truth is, whatever your belief is accurately creating all the time. Now, are we always aware of and taking ownership of what we believe? Nope. Herein lies the disconnect. Because oftentimes what shows up in our life seems to confuse us. And then we want to step out of this thing called unity. We want to step out of this thing called oneness and find some comfort in finger pointing, which requires two-ness. See, some of you know, tell the truth, When things show up in our life, our human default is to look for who to blame. Because God knows it can't be my fault. So I have to have a villain. See, the minute I go to victimhood, I need a villain. And in those moments of victimhood, any villain will do. Typically, whoever's in the closest proximity, you're good. I'll use you. Okay? And sometimes our villains don't even need to be present. Okay? Sometimes they don't even need to be sucking air anymore. Right? Anybody still have villains that aren't here? I'll be okay when those people who wronged me apologize, knowing full well it's quite impossible since they're gone. So you anchor yourself to a chain that's never going to resolve itself until you unhook the chain. Now, we don't have to be bound by people's physical presence. We don't have to be bound by anything. Having a memory of when I used to umpire NCAA baseball, and I was doing a game at Clemson. And somebody didn't like a call, and a chair came flying out of the dugout. All right. Now, I have got to eject somebody from this game. And I have no idea who threw that chair. But there's a certain appearance that has to be maintained in order to maintain whatever semblance of control we actually think we have as an umpire. So I walked over to the dugout, and I said, "Who's on your roster who's not here?" They gave me a name, and I said, "Phew," and I ejected somebody from the game who wasn't even there. Fair enough? We can eject people from our game that aren't here. Okay? We don't have to eject the people that are here, because in truth, they're not the ones causing the problem anyway. My thoughts are causing the problem. Every situation in life, now this may cause some cognitive dissonance, let me tell you that going into this statement. Every situation, every event in life is absolutely neutral. It's just something that happens. We assign the emotion. We assign the value. We assign the good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the up, the down, the more, the less. We do that. The event is just a neutral event. And so to live successfully in principle, we have to keep going back to principle. What's true? In the most heinous event, the most catastrophic event, is God missing? No. But oftentimes we assess that it is. And so we create an experience of unsuccessful living based on what we tell ourselves. And it's just as easy to remind ourselves that God hasn't gone anywhere, that the divine hasn't gone anywhere, that in this person that engaged in a behavior that we find atrocious, the same amount of divinity lives, moves, and has its being as that individual as you. Not for the faint of heart. This teaching makes some requirements of us. And they're not necessarily easy. They're simple, but they're not easy. If this were easy, we would have services nonstop all day, every day, in order to meet the demand. It's not. And so first off, give yourself a pat on the back for even showing up. Okay? It's a lot like 12-step recovery. The rooms would be overflowing if everybody who needed to be there was there. That's not who shows up. The people who show up are the people who want something different. It's the same way with our teaching. We are the people who want something different. And so how do we do that? Let me tell you what the original 1926 version of Science of Mind says to us. Mental science, which is the science of mind and spirit, makes a tremendous claim when it states that it can free the individual from the bondage of sickness, poverty, and unhappiness, but it makes this statement without hesitation and without qualifications. It does not retract from that claim, and it never will. It does, however, carefully set forth the conditions under which it operates and the laws governing life, warning us that unless we understand these conditions and obey these laws, we will not receive full benefit from the science of mind. We have some rules that we can choose to play by or not. But law is going to happen. See, there's this activity of creation that we refer to as law. Why law? Because it happens exactly the same every time with precision. It creates. It doesn't care what it creates. It doesn't even have an opinion. It is simply the activity of creation. So whatever it's given, it immediately acts upon, uses all of the resources, which is the infinite, at its disposal to bring it into manifestation, into form, into experience. Our job is to get clear about what we're putting into law, what we are activating. So much of this talk is going to be about the 5 pillars of science of mind, because that's really how we do it. Okay? The first pillar that we look at is meditation. Now, what exactly is meditation in terms of science of mind? Because when Ernest Holmes first used the word meditation, it was by far a household word. Okay? There are as many ways to meditate as there are people. So if you think you're doing it wrong, stop it. You can't do it wrong, but you have choices. Primarily what Ernest Holmes was talking about when he talked about meditation is really what we understand today to be contemplation. Okay? He would offer phrases to take into contemplation. It's the activity of listening, but listening to something beyond from the neck up. Okay? It's that place of listening to the heart, listening to the spirit. There's a practice with the Kabbalah, which is the mystic part of Judaism, where they literally just take random letters from the Hebrew alphabet into contemplation to see what it sparks. Okay. So it's that place of tapping into something beyond our human brain. Because the brain doesn't think. The brain is a computer processor. It only accesses thoughts that you've put there. Mind, spirit, that's the thinker. That's the imagination. And so meditation is a way to get to that. It is literally the activity of listening from a surrendered place. Okay? Lots of different ways to do that. Affirmative prayer is the next pillar. And affirmative prayer is very different than the kind of prayer that most of us are raised with. Most of us are raised with what is called beseeching, where we are petitioning something outside of ourselves to do something for us. That we're not really involved in the process, if whatever that thing outside of us is deems us to be worthy, then it will give us what we ask for. So many thoughts, so much restraint. Suffice it to say, ain't a word of truth in it. Because there's nothing outside of you. See, in this reality of oneness, and scientifically we can prove it, no two molecules are touching anywhere. Everything is in this one field of energy. The only reason we appear different in form is vibration. It's frequency. And when the frequency changes, form comes into being. And when the form is released, that energy goes right back into the field that it's always been in at a different vibration. We are never separate from it. I wish I had better words. I wish there was some way I could take out, because I know it's true by how it resonates in my being, and I wish I could just take that out and go, here, feel this. Because then you'd get it. And you'll get it when you step into it. It's just like water. I can tell you that water's wet all day long, but until you put your foot in it or put your hand in it, you're never going to understand what wet is. Prayer, affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment is how we get in it. And it's 5 simple steps. We reviewed these last week. You recognize what it is, whatever that is to you. And trust me, it will change. You recognize that you are that in form, that you have always been unified with it. So what is true of it is true of you. And if that doesn't take you to gratitude, go back through the first 3 until it does. And then you speak from your gratitude. And when you've spoken all the gratitude you need to speak, you let it go because you know it's handled. Spiritual mind treatment is literally that process of aligning our human with our spiritual. Speaking truth to align us with that. Because when we're in alignment with it, we act from it. And that is the place where successful living by principle really happens, is in that place of alignment. Okay? When your vehicle is in alignment, it drives in alignment. When it's out of alignment, doesn't matter what you do with the steering wheel, your wheels got a mind of their own. Same thing happens when we're out of alignment with principle. We think we're steering this way, but our wheels, our activity, are going this way. And that's that space where things show up in our life where we're like, what happened? You happened. That's the good news, that's the bad news. What happened was you. Okay? Doesn't mean we control the weather. Doesn't mean tornadoes don't happen. It doesn't mean floods don't happen. But we get to control how we respond and how we interact. That's ours. Okay? So how do we begin to pull all that together? I think the most important part, at least it has been for me, and the one that we tend to shy away from collectively, is spiritual study. We somehow... the feedback I've gotten is the word class scares me. So every once in a while I use the word course. Every once in a while I use the word experience. It's not a class where you're getting an A, B, C, or F grade. We're not grading you. It's a class because it's an exploration of information from someone else. It's a class because it's study. Okay? This is as intuitive as this teaching is, it's very counterintuitive to our socialization. It's very counterintuitive to the status quo religious beliefs that most of us were raised with. And it's really very simple and very complex all at the same time. So we study together. We study what other people have assimilated and examined, and we question it. Now, those of you who have taken a class from me will know. You bring whatever resistance you have. You bring whatever questions you have. You have carte blanche to sit in class and say, I think that's a load of crap and this is why. Because if we can't go there, we can't really learn. And so bring all of your objections. Bring all of your scaredness. Bring all of your suspiciousness. Bring it all. And we'll sort it out. And you are always in charge of what you walk away believing. I'm not. I don't have the power to make you believe anything anyway. Don't have it. But I'm pretty good at poking the bear. I'm pretty good at, okay, well, I heard you say this and I heard you say this, and last week you said this, but today you're saying this, and that kind of counteracts all that. So what's up? Which is a lot of what we do. It's exploring our beliefs through other people's information. The power of your word that's coming up is exactly that. It helps us understand how this creative process works, the power. And I'm not talking about the words that you speak. I'm talking about the power of your word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. That power. And how it operates in you and how you can use it to change your life. Visioning is similar to meditation. It's a practice that has evolved since we explored meditation. And it really is the process of clearing away everything that you think is supposed to be you and allowing that divine essence of you to inform you of how it wants to express as your life. One of the things that we're going to do in that visioning class is at the end of it, we're going to do 2 classes in one on a Saturday, and we are going to vision for and create a tangible project for this center. We're going to vision for Sierra Center for Spiritual Living, and we're going to create 3 newspaper boards. A year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And we're going to do it from the divine informing us of what's to be on those boards, not what we think is supposed to be on them. The other thing that I've contemplated all morning is on Wednesday night actually diving into that 1926 text, because the way it's laid out as lessons. It's laid out with an introduction, with lessons, and then with a recapitulation. And we can dive into that rascal and take as long as we want to go through it. So just an idea floating around. The other 2 pieces, the other 2 pillars, seva, which is a Sanskrit word just meaning selfless service. That's all it means. Selfless service means engaging in service with 0 investment in the outcome. Now, a lot of us think it's 0 investment in being rewarded. Notice what I'm saying. 0 investment in the outcome, which means we show up, we volunteer our time, our talents, and treasures, and then we let go of what happens next. Oftentimes, sacred service, we get involved in it because we want to direct how things happen. That's not sacred service. That's manipulation. Okay? Sacred service means we show up, we give, and our giving started with release. We showed up just to give, to get nothing. Okay. This center runs on sacred service. It has to. Okay. And so if you're not in sacred service here and would like to be, there's information available. You can reach out to Juanita. She can help you get hooked up. But there's lots of things. And if you want to serve in a way that we don't already have established, well, there's nothing stopping us from doing something new now, is there? So listen to that call within. And again, if you think about volunteering and an argument starts, that's your resistance to what is calling for you to do. I'm just saying. You're not arguing with nothing. You're arguing with a divine nudge that suggested that you might want to do something. Okay. Circulation is the last pillar, and perhaps the one that challenges us the most. Because circulation is that thing of giving. In one of the songs that we did at the beginning, give and then receive. A lot of us, because we're fear-based, because we're living with a consciousness of lack, want to receive and then we can give. Okay? Doesn't work that way. If the water department doesn't give first, when you open the tap, you shall receive nothing. Okay? Giving happens first. And so, take a look at where you're giving. Take a look at where you have fear showing up that you don't have enough to give from. Those are kinks in your hoses. Okay? And if you've ever tried to water your garden or wash your car with a kink in the hose, nothing happens where you get this little trickle. And when you go back and undo the kink, whoosh! Okay? So if you are experiencing a lack of flow, use these 5 pillars. Find the kinks in your hose, straighten them out, get yourself aligned, and watch the flow open. It just happens. So I know I've gone a little bit over, and I would apologize, but I'm not sorry. This is important stuff. So let's take this into prayer. What I know is that the infinite truly is all there is. That it is perfect peace, infinite intelligence, infinite abundance. That it is the very power, the very presence, the very authority of all life. And I know that it is my life. Closer than my very breath. It is my breath. It thinks my thoughts, it dreams my dreams. It informs my soul of the truth of its being. And what is true of me is true of all. And so I speak a word of revelation, a word of realization, of making real within each and every individualized expression of divinity within the sound of my voice, an experience of their life as the life of the divine. An experience of success beyond their wildest dreams. An experience of life that recognizes its divinity, that stands unqualified, unquestioned in it, and creates from that center of truth, from that center of principle. So grateful to know that just as quickly as the words are formed in mind, in consciousness, and spoken in voice, that the very authority that formed them and spoke them makes them so. And so I joyfully let go, let it be, and release it into the authority and laser precision activity of law, knowing it is done. And I invite you to anchor this with me as we say together, and so it is.